There is a pattern hiding in rock history that only becomes visible when you look at it from the right angle.
Give me one more day, please. I don't want.
The men who helped build heavy metal, who wrote the riffs, played the drums, set the volume levels that showed everyone what the genre was capable of, could not stand what it became. And in some cases, they could not stand the name to begin with. This is not a list of fans who turned on the genre. This is a list of founders who rejected their own creation.
I'm a blind.
Number 10, Keith Richards. Here is where the map starts, not where you would expect. Keith Richards did not invent heavy metal, but the conversation about where metal came from, where the raw, amplified blues-first guitar riff originated, cannot skip the Rolling Stones. Jimmy Page studied that vocabulary. Tony Iommi built on top of it. The line from the Stones through the groups that came after them is real, and the musicians who followed it have said so on the record. Which makes what Richards said about that lineage worth following very closely. He was speaking to the New York Daily News. He was asked about Metallica and Black Sabbath, the titans that had grown from the soil his generation had turned. His response was not anger, it was closer to amusement. He said millions of people were in love with those bands. And then he said he just thought they were great jokes. Follow that word, jokes. Not enemies, not corruption, jokes. The man who spent a career building the amplified blues vocabulary that metal would later claim as a founding influence, dismissing the entire genre as comedy. Not with contempt exactly, with the particular distance of someone who genuinely cannot see the connection others keep drawing. Here is where the map gets interesting, because that distance is precisely the pattern this list is tracking. And what you are about to hear in the next 9 entries is the same rejection in increasingly specific and increasingly ironic forms. Number 9, Eric Clapton. This connection starts in 1966 in London. Cream formed Eric Clapton, Jack Bruce, Ginger Baker. A power trio that was blues-rooted, improvisation-based, and loud in a way that had not been fully assembled before. The template they built, a trio organized around a lead guitarist who could carry the full sonic weight of the room, became a blueprint that metal would study. Jimmy Page has discussed how formative that Cream-era sound was. Clapton himself, looking back decades later, said Cream was one of the early heavy metal bands without knowing it. Without knowing it? That phrase matters. In 1986, Clapton sat down for an interview and was asked about the heavy metal acts that had been dominating rock. He said he had never really heard them. He said he could not claim responsibility for whatever they were doing. And then he said why. They just make a lot of noise, he said. They don't have a melodic thing at all. It is sort of anti-melody, and I am a bit too romantic for all that. Anti-melody, said by the guitarist who spent the 1960s building the melodic lead vocabulary that the bands he is describing would later trace their lineage back to.
Burn me with a love and love.
You have heard the influence. Now hear what the source thought of what claimed it. Once you see this connection, you will hear Clapton's Cream era recordings differently.
It's alright. The way that you treat me, baby.
As someone building a language he did not know would one day be described by him as a lot of noise, without knowing it, as he said. And if you have ever wondered where that specific combination of foundational influence and genuine rejection comes from, next on this list is the most precise version of it, in real time, in the moment it was happening.
'Cause once I was strong. Oh.
Let's look at the numbers. Only 9% of you are actually subscribed. Honestly, that's tough to see. Our team spends days hunting down archives and verifying every single fact just to tell these stories right. If you've made it this far into the video, you're clearly part of the community, so please hit subscribe. It costs nothing and helps us immensely. Now, for those already subscribed, very few of you have made the jump to our membership, and that's a hard pill to swallow because you're the ones who know our value best. If this channel has moved you or inspired you, consider joining. It's the price of one coffee, but it's the literal fuel for this channel. Let's keep this alive together. Back to the story.
Number 8. Eddie Vedder. The map shifts registers here, but the thread is the same one. When Pearl Jam released 10 in August of 1991, the commercial era of glam metal began to close. Motley Crue and the bands that occupied their orbit had owned MTV and the charts through the previous decade. Grunge did not ask permission to occupy that space. It simply occupied it. Eddie Vedder was at the center of that displacement, whether he chose to be framed that way or not. And it turns out he had been watching what he was displacing very closely. In a New York Times interview, Vedder said he despised Motley Crue. That specific word. Not found them limiting, not preferred other things. Despised. He went further. He took specific issue with the visual language of the genre, the aesthetic, the performance of a particular kind of masculinity, the outfits and staging that had defined what metal looked like on television through the 1980s. He was not speaking generally. He named specific images. He was precise. And then, here is where the line appears on the map. Vedder made a distinction. He expressed something like appreciation for Guns N' Roses. The rejection was not undifferentiated. The line he was drawing was not, all of this is wrong. It was, this particular version of this has gone somewhere I cannot follow. That nuance is the same argument that Robert Plant would make about Judas Priest, that Ritchie Blackmore would make about where Deep Purple had ended up. The founders and the heirs, a generation apart, drawing the same line between original intent and what the genre became. What comes next is where that line becomes something explicit and generational at the same time. Number 7. Kurt Cobain. Here is a connection most summaries of this era. Miss Cobain spent his teenage years in Aberdeen, Washington, with a specific record collection. He has said this in interviews. Black Sabbath was in heavy rotation. Led Zeppelin was formative. The distorted, amplified rock that preceded him was part of what he absorbed and built from. That debt is acknowledged. It is on the record in his own words. And then Nirvana broke through in 1991, and Cobain was equally explicit about what he was building away from. He said he was looking for something a lot heavier, yet melodic at the same time, something different from heavy metal. A different attitude, different from heavy metal, said by the person whose first major album ended hair metal's commercial decade. Some of you just connected that to something. I know you did. Because what Cobain is describing, looking for something heavier and more melodic that is specifically, intentionally not heavy metal, is a position that contains both the genre's influence and its rejection simultaneously. He was built from the music he was moving away from. He made music that ended the market that music had occupied. And what he built replaced it. The thread running through this list is about people who came into contact with the genre and found they could not claim it, even when they could not fully escape what it had given them. The first 7 entries on this list are people who rejected metal from various degrees of outside it. Number 6, John Entwistle. Here is where the map doubles back on itself. John Entwistle was the bassist in The Who, and what Entwistle did with a bass, treating it as a lead instrument, doubling the riff rather than the rhythm, playing it loud enough to compete with a lead guitar at full volume, became a blueprint that metal bassists spent decades studying. Roger Daltrey, speaking in 2026, said The Who were the first heavy metal band. That claim has serious historical support from people who would know. The connection between what Entwistle played and what metal bass became is documented by the musicians who inherited it. You have heard the influence. Now hear what the source thought about what claimed it. The quote has been in circulation for decades. Entwistle said he was only interested in heavy metal when it's me who's playing it. I suppose it's a bit like smelling your own farts. That is a sentence. That is a precise, unambiguous dismissal dressed up as a joke, which is exactly how John Entwistle operated. Follow this for a moment. The argument inside that joke is worth taking seriously. What Entwistle played was idiosyncratic, technically complex, and melodically ambitious in ways that the genre he helped inspire was not always prioritizing. The family resemblance between what he built and what inherited it was apparently not recognizable enough for him to claim. His bandmate had a more elaborated version of the same position, and he had specific names to attach it to. Number 5, Pete Townshend. There are 2 parts to it, and you need both. In 1980, Pete Townshend was speaking to Sound International magazine. He described the period after Woodstock, when The Who's audience had begun to overlap with the audiences for Deep Purple, and 10 years after, the heavier groups sharing festival bills with them in the late 1960s.
To your heart, to your heart.
He was asked what he thought about that proximity. "Both groups I hate," he said. He added context.
Love can't kill your problem. You're so lucky.
He acknowledged that the musicians themselves were friends, and then he was specific. "I hated their music. It was very hard to live with in a way that we were being lumped in with these very heavy metal bands."
I can stop you falling apart. Tragedy.
Here is the second part, and this is where the map gets complicated. In the Toronto Sun, Townshend had also said about the Who's own Live at Leeds album, "We sort of invented heavy metal."
Open the door to your heart.
He named Led Zeppelin specifically as a band that had principally copied the Who's approach. Heavy drums, heavy bass, heavy lead guitar. He made this claim directly, and then, in 1995, he said about Led Zeppelin, "I don't like a single thing that they have done. I hate the fact that I'm ever even slightly compared to them." He built the road. He identified who had driven down it, and he said he hated where they went.
Release yourself from misery. There's only one thing.
This is the clearest version of the argument. A man who acknowledged his own influence on the genre, named the specific bands it passed through, and then rejected both the genre and the bands in the same breath.
Your finest way. Come on and give me a chance to say.
Number 4, Ritchie Blackmore. Here is where the list becomes something genuinely strange. Ritchie Blackmore co-wrote "Smoke on the Water." He co-wrote "Highway Star" and "Black Night" and "Burn." The riffs he built with Deep Purple between 1968 and 1993 are on the short list of foundational hard rock recordings. The things that metal guitarists learn, cite, and trace their lineage back to when they try to explain where their music came from. Deep Purple, alongside Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, is in the official account of how heavy metal came to exist. This is not a debated point. In 1993, Blackmore quit. Not just Deep Purple, he quit rock music. He was specific about why. Toward the end of his time with Purple, he said, it had become just being loud for the sake of being loud. He said that when he discovered Renaissance music, music from the 15th and 16th centuries, there were melodies in it that amplified rock had stopped having. It was a relief. He used that word. He formed Blackmore's Night with his wife Candace Knight, medieval instruments, hurdy-gurdies and shawms and songs from 500 years before amplification existed. He described going from the loudest band in the world to the most quiet band in the world. The man who co-wrote Highway Star now plays Renaissance folk at period festivals, not as a detour, as his life, as the music he wanted to play after the other music had stopped being worth playing. And if you think that is the most extreme version of this story on the list, the next number did not even have to leave. He just kept insisting for his entire career that he had never actually been where everyone said he was. Number 3, Robert Plant. You know this song, you know it well. But knowing a song and knowing what the man who sang it felt about the genre it helped define, those are two different trips. Let me take you on the second one. Led Zeppelin is in the official account of where heavy metal came from. Robert Plant's voice, the wail, the physical urgency, the mythological reach of the lyrics became a template that metal vocalists spent decades studying. The debt is acknowledged by the genre itself. When metal singers describe their influences, Plant's name appears. This is not a debated point. It is the documented lineage. In 1988, Robert Plant was being interviewed for Q magazine. The journalist asked him about heavy metal, about the genre that his band was widely credited with helping to build. Plant turned and pointed to a poster on the wall, a poster of Judas Priest. Leather-clad, iconic, one of the most recognizable images in the genre's history. He said, "If I'm responsible for this in any way, then I am really, really embarrassed." Follow that word, embarrassed. Not proud of the lineage, not even neutral about it, embarrassed. He did not stop there. He described what heavy metal had become in a single line that closes the argument. Hard rock, heavy metal these days is just saying, "Come and buy me. I'm in league with the devil, but only in this picture because after that I'm going to be quite nice, and one day I'm going to grow up and be the manager of a pop group." And then, 6 years later, speaking to MTV about Led Zeppelin being labeled a heavy metal band, he called it what he thought it was. Journalistic complacency and claptrap. The godfather of the genre thinks the label itself is complacency and claptrap. Once you see this connection, you hear the entire Led Zeppelin catalog differently, as a body of work that the person who made it refuses to see as the thing everyone uses it to explain. Number 2. Ginger Baker. Here is the line between Cream and everything that claimed Cream as a founding document. Ginger Baker's drumming in Cream, the power, the jazz-informed technique, the sheer physical force of it applied to a rock context, is in every serious account of what early heavy metal drummers studied. Cream's combination of volume, blues vocabulary, and improvisation as structure is in the official history. The band sits at the origin point. This is the acknowledged account. And here is what Baker thought about what grew from that origin point. He said, and the quote was documented in Forbes, and it has been circulating since, "I've seen where Cream is held responsible for the birth of that sort of thing. Well, I would definitely go for aborting." He kept going. "I loathe and detest heavy metal. I think it is an abortion. When songs like that come on the radio, they immediately go off." That is not ambivalence. That is not distance. That is specific, documented, active loathing from one of the men whose playing is in the foundational account of how the genre formed. Follow this thread back to entry 9. Eric Clapton, also from Cream, called metal anti-melody and said he was too romantic for it. Now you have the drummer from the same band saying he would have aborted the entire thing. Two men from the same foundational group, speaking separately, arriving at the same verdict about the genre they helped build without knowing it. The family tree has unlabeled branches, and the people at the root of those branches could not recognize the branches as their own. The root of a tree is the last thing anyone looks at. Number 1, Ian Gillan.
Lying on the floor. Whether
And this is the connection nobody makes. Until now. Smoke on the Water. You know this song. You know it well. But knowing a song and knowing what the man who sang it has said about the genre it helped define, those are two different trips. Let me take you on the second one. That riff, Blackmore's riff, Deep Purple's recording, Machine Head, 1972, is on every short list of songs that define what heavy metal sounds like.
when a blind man cries, Lord.
Ask anyone who grew up listening to rock music, and they will name it. It is in the shared vocabulary. It is in the cellular memory of anyone who ever touched a guitar. Ian Gillan sang it. He also sang Highway Star, Child in Time, Space Truckin', and Perfect Strangers. The catalog he helped create with Deep Purple is in the origin documents of heavy metal. Ask any metal guitarist to name the records that shaped them, and Deep Purple appears. This is not contested. It is the acknowledged history. And Ian Gillan has spent his entire career saying, "I am not a heavy metal singer." In a 2025 interview, he addressed the strong statements that had been attributed to him over the years about the genre.
Hear me grieving.
What he had actually said, he clarified, was that he did not consider himself a heavy metal singer. Not a metal singer. That specific phrase is what he wanted on the record. In 2026, asked about Smoke on the Water, he said, "Everyone thinks it's a heavy metal song. It's not."
In that room.
And here is the thing. Once you follow this thread to where it ends, you realize his argument is not without logic.
From his soul.
The records he made with Deep Purple were built from jazz influences, classical theory, blues vocabulary, and improvisation.
I'm drunk or dead. I'm really not too sure.
His grandfather sang opera. He was a boy soprano in a church choir. His uncle was a jazz pianist.
But it ended much too soon.
The music he made with Deep Purple was not made by people who thought of themselves as making heavy metal. It was made by musicians who thought they were making music. The genre caught them, named them, claimed them, built its origin story around them, and the man who sang the songs kept saying, "That is not my name." You already knew the destination. You have known it since you were old enough to air guitar that riff in a bedroom. What you did not know was the route. And the route is a man who wrote the definition of something he refused to be defined by. Influencing the future is not the same as being remembered by it. The root of a tree is the last thing anyone looks at, and sometimes, as Ian Gillan's entire career makes unmistakably clear, not even the root knows what it grew.